Alright, in this demonstration I'm going to talk about arithmetic operators, integers, and floats, and we're going to do some demonstration. You can also sort of follow along a textual version as a recap if you want, whenever you are in the website and looking at the text version. So anyway, what I did was I took the basic page and I went ahead and so you don't have to watch me type, I did this. So here's the H1, and then in pre-tags, just so you can be, like basically have a reminder when you're looking at HTML, this is HTML, and it's got all of the different operators and what they're called. And this is our testing area. I'm not going to bother to put stuff about addition and subtraction and all that because we're just going to play around. But this way you'll be able to see your results very clearly whenever you're coming back. So we're going to jump into the code view, and you can see here this is that HTML that's a reminder, and I used horizontal rules in between everything just for easy separation. So first things first, let's go ahead and let's talk a little bit about these different operators. So addition is going to use the plus operator, really straightforward stuff. Subtraction is the minus or subtraction operator. The multiplication is going to use an asterisk to show multiplication. Division is a /, and modulo division, we're going to talk about what that means if you're not sure what that is. It uses a % sign. And increment, which is going to add by default add 1, is going to be ++. Decrement is -. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to look at here is defining some variables. I've already defined them for us, and you can do this if you wish. Take some time. X equals 10, y equals 20, and z equals 4. You could change these values up and play with them. And we're just going to really quickly come down here. In each section you can see that I've got them divided up with comments, PHP comments, single line comments I should say. And then on the next line I'll go ahead and we'll do the stuff and print it to the screen. So let's go ahead and we're going to say echo, and then I'm going to go ahead and echo out the value of x. Let's say x plus y, okay? And let me show you, you can either do it like this, where you don't put spaces in between. That will be just fine because it sees this plus symbol as an operator, and so it knows to add the two things together. If you want to put spaces there so it's easier to read, you can do that, as long as it's not more than one space in between. We're going to go ahead and save that, and if you want to look at the page here, I'm in dev. I'm going to go to my arithmetic page, and you can see here that 10 plus 20, or x plus y, is in fact 30. So that's correct. And then if you wanted to just change that, to subtraction, you'll see that in fact it's a -10 because you're subtracting 20 from 10, right? If you look at these values up here, so you're saying 10 here minus 20, it's going to end up being a -10. So the other thing that you could do too, is you could store the value. So that's another thing that you could do. You could say sum, or let's say sum, and we'll make it addition. Sum equals, and then we're just gonna cut this out. You could do it like this. You could say sum equals x plus y, and then you would say echo sum. Right, so you're storing the value of this expression into a variable called sum, and we can see that it in fact is printing the variable of sum, and that is 30 because x plus y is still going to be 30. Okay, so that's addition and subtraction, really simple, and it's exactly the same way for multiplication and division. So you could start to do, like the same kind of thing. We'll say product equals, let's just say x divided by y. Okay. and then we're going to have to echo that back out. So we'll say echo product, and you'll see that in fact it gives you the correct value because you're dividing 10 by 20, so that's going to give you 0.5. It's basically half. Okay, so if you were to change this around where you say y divided by x, you're going to get a different product, right? You're going to get 2 because it goes into it 2 times. All right, and then if you really wanted to play around here, you could go ahead and switch this over to multiplication. And of course, with multiplication, it doesn't matter which order they go in. Y times x is the same as x times y. So let's go ahead and refresh that. Okay, well, 10 times 20 is 200. So you can see how these things are pushing stuff out to the screen properly. So I'm not going to really dive into this much further. I'm going to go ahead and jump to modulo division. Okay, what is modulo division? Well, modulo division returns the remainder of something. So let's say returns the remainder of a division expression. Okay. All right. So whereas up here, let's just change this back. Okay. So up here in our division, we have y divided by x, and then we got the product of 2. Well, because it went in evenly, and there was nothing left over, then the remainder would be 0. Okay, so if this had been a modulo operation, if this had been like that, okay, then the actual value would end up being 0, not 2, because there was 0 remainder. So in fact, let's just copy this expression, and we're going to say echo, and we're going to change this from a division symbol to modulo. And what we're going to get is the remainder of this expression. So if you look at the values up here again, and we're saying if 20 divided by 10, what is 20 divided by 10? It goes in 2 times with 0 left over. Modulo would be the 0 part. So here, let's take a look at this. Let's save it, and let's make sure that we're right. Yes, we're right. Modulo is 0. But let's say that, for instance, we are dividing, let's say 10 by 4, or x by z. Okay, so let's say that we're doing x modulo z. Okay, hit return, and now we have a remainder of 2 because 4 will go into 10 twice with 2 left over. So it would be, 4 and 4, which is 8, and then 10 minus 8 is 2. Okay, so you end up with that remainder of 2. Why, you ask, do I care? Okay, well, what's important is a really common use, I should say, aside from sort of like financial mathematics and stuff, and certain other kinds of programmatic stuff, but a really common use for this would be to figure out if something is odd or even. And the reason for that would be, let's say that you are printing something out to screen that's got a whole bunch of rows in a table or something like that, and it's hard to read. And so what you want to do is you want to have maybe like alternating classes, CSS styles, like alternating colors for the background of each row. You could use a modulo operation to figure out, whenever you're counting through the rows, to figure out if it's an odd number or even number whenever it's producing those rows. And we'll get to that, and I'll show you an example of that when we get into arrays and loops. Okay, so, but for now, just understand that that's how you do modulo, and that's what the concept of it is. Okay, and then now we're coming to increment and decrement. So increment and decrement, it's really simple, but there's something a little bit different. Notice how on all these other expressions I'm saying echo, and then I have the expression, and then it automatically will echo it out for you. Well, with increment and decrement, it's a little bit different depending on which way you do it. The increment and decrement that's standard would be like x, let's say x plus plus, okay? That's actually a command right there. It's not you don't have to echo it or something like that for it to actually work. And what is actually happening is that x is changing itself. Basically, this is a little bit misleading because down here I say combining calculation with the assignment operator. Well, that's sort of what we're doing here, okay? You're saying plus plus, but it's a specific type of thing, and it is specifically called increment, or if these were minus symbols, they would be specifically decrement, where it's now currently changing the value of x to x plus 1. That's basically what it's doing. And it, for the rest of the script, is changing the value of x at this point. So if I were just to say x plus plus, I think the original value of x was 10. Well, now x is going to be 11. So if I were to then go and say echo x like that, let's see what happens. You see that it's actually 11 now. Okay, so that's potentially a little confusing. And if we do decrement, it's the same principle. Okay, so save. Now it should be 9 because it originally was 10, and minus 1 is going to be 9. So you might be wondering, all right, well, how do I do that without actually changing the value of it? Well, you would have to do a regular expression of subtraction, like x minus 1, okay? And then you're not changing it, you're basically just basically producing a value right then and there, but you're not changing the actual value of x. That's what this is doing now. Okay, now I want to show you something. If I do this and I say echo, I'll show you what happens. Okay, so here I'm just saying echo x minus minus. Okay, well, it still says 10. Well, x is supposed to be 10 minus 1, right? That's what you just said, Lee. Well, the thing is that that's only going to be true if you do it in a different way. All right, so here's the thing. If I have this coming after echo, this is still performing its command where it's decrementing at 1, but it doesn't actually happen until after the command is terminated. It's weird, okay? So just know that if I were to come now down here and then say echo x, watch what happens. Well, I should say, here, let's concatenate, since we learned how to concatenate. So I'm going to put ellipses marks in between those two values so it doesn't look like 109. Okay, so look what happens side by side. Here I'm saying echo the decrement of x. Well, the echo part is happening right now. It's saying echo x, and then after the command it actually performs the decrement on it. So then if I go to actually echo x again, it will actually show me that decrement. That's confusing. So there's another option that you can use where you're actually able to use echo right off the bat, and it looks like this. Let's do plus plus. Or I think we did minus minus, right? Okay, so we're doing minus minus x, like that. You do the decrement first. It's just an order of operation. And then it does the decrement and echoes it all in the same command. Okay, so you're going to see different ways of doing the decrements and increments, but anyway, I just want you to be aware of that. Okay, and then lastly, we're going to combine calculation with assignment so that you can actually change the value of something on the fly. So let's go ahead and let's do an example. So let's say that we're going to do something like x plus equals y, like this, and then now we want to echo x, like this. Save that, hit refresh, and then you see what's happening is we've actually got x reassigning on the fly. It's reassigning the value of itself plus the value of y. And of course, remember we changed the value of x up here to 9. It's not 10 anymore. That's why we now have 29, because y is 20 and x was 9 after we changed it here. So now we have the value of 29 when we echo x. I could have also done this if I wanted to be succinct. So I can echo it at the same time that I'm changing the value, and then we still have the same value here.